you've never been to NHC, this is what it is right here. This is awesome.
There are going to be prices come in. This room is going to be nuts tomorrow.
These players are unbelievable. This is your chance to be in the spotlight.
When all 8 tracks are in play, there's going to be bombs dropping left and right. There's going to be screaming and yelling.
Hawthorne is probably the best value out there for cash tournament play.
If you're serious about contests and you want to experience the NHC, you have to find a way to get to Hawthorne as many times as you can. You absolutely have to. The reason I think the Hawthorne contests are the best value in contests, there's no entry fee. Hawthorne is giving away seats. You have to play in those events because, we all know what the cost of an online NHC seat is.
Got some free entries, come out to Hawthorne, so I made my first trip and had a great time.
If you're playing contests, Hawthorne is a great spot to be. There's no takeout of the contest. It's a great place for horse players to either qualify here or play in some live money contests.
Good afternoon, racing fans. Welcome to Hawthorne Racecourse for a Wednesday afternoon of thoroughbred action. Jim Miller and Emily Gullikson up here in our TV studio on the mezzanine level. Emily, it's a beautiful day for racing. Temperatures in the 80s. Sunny skies, fast track, firm turf. Half the card is on the grass today, too.
I was going to say, would you call it Turf Wednesday?
It is.
There
are a lot of turf racing. It's a matter of how the race is filled today. So it's usually, we kind of try to limit it to 3 on the turf, but you know what? 4 on the turf. They're good races today. Not a whole lot of scratches. Only 2 scratches in the body of the races and then 2 MTOs. So card held together pretty well too.
Yeah, and I like the card starting off with the turf race. I know we'll get into it a little bit when we go through, but I like that just in terms of the way that it starts with a competitive race to start off the pick 5, gets people interested in the card. So I like that modification. I like today's card.
Yeah, I like today's card as well. Today we drew the card for Sunday, Hawthorne Derby Day. The Hawthorne Derby, couple of tough horses in there. It's going to go as race number 5 on the card. We have 3 allowance races on that card. Overall, the card filled pretty well, and it's a big day on Sunday. It's the day of the Hawthorne Horse Players Invitational, so you're going to be very busy with you and Ed DeRosa.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. We've done the player interviews, talked to some players, and just, the hype from last year. As soon as it ends, it's like, oh, wow, that was, kind of exhausting recover, right. And then you're like, I can't wait for the next one. So I've been kind of hyped since the NHC, and it's like, it's already here. We're going to do it. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It's a solid field. I had a couple people message like, whoa, that's a competitive group. Yeah. I'm like, yeah, it is. But so somebody's gonna win. It has to be your day. It's got to be how you play. Minimize your mistakes. I'm definitely looking forward to collaborating with Ed. He and I are good friends. He's very skillful, knows a lot on the strategy, the math side. So I think he's gonna bring a lot to the table, and I'm just really looking forward to it.
Yeah, it should be a fun day. Added optional races are going to make it a little bit more interesting as well. We have our mandatory races, then some added optional races throughout the course of the day. People will make movement there. The last race on the card for the contest will be race number 7. It's a really good 10-horse allowance field here at Hawthorne on the turf course. They're going to have to bet $750 on that, but they're going to want to build that bankroll leading up to there because there's some price potential. And when we look at Sunday's card, you'll see what I'm talking about because there's some good horses stepping up in that field, but should be a very good day for the contest. And then we have qualifying contests on Saturday and Sunday as well for the NHC. I know players always like the fact that there's no entry fee, live bankroll, play the tracks you want. I mean, it's real gambling and real betting, and I think that's what the players want.
Yeah, and if they're already playing, then play anyways. Just get a ticket and enter and bet, and even if you don't max out your 500, you can still keep what you win, or you don't win on the tournament, you're still taking home what you wagered that day. So there's only positives in order to play, right? You can only go up from that if you're going to be wagering that day. So it's a great opportunity. I'm looking forward to be out there. I know I might jump around to a few OTBs. I haven't quite decided yet, but we're doing something at Crestwood later on that evening, so I'll be out there, and yeah, looking forward to it. Like I said, I might jump in and play. Ineligible, but might play.
Why not?
All the
Why
same.
not? Yeah.
Again, it's just cash money that I'm going to bet anyways.
And if anything, it's testing your skills just to kind of see where you're at. So that's the cool thing about it with our contest. Again, NHC seats on the line on Saturday and Sunday. It's at multiple OTB locations too. So that's the thing. It's not just one location you have to be at. You can go to a few different places. Check out the website, hawthorneracecourse.com. You see right there The thing on the left is interesting too, a $1 million bonus if you win one of our Hawthorne contests and win the NHC. We've had Hawthorne players play very well in the NHC, Emily, numerous times. So $1 million isn't something that's completely out of reach either.
No, not at all. And again, it's one of those things, if you're already there, nice to be playing for that bonus. And we had a couple that were bonus eligible when they made the cutoff in that top 10% at the NHC. So it's great, and great promotion that we're doing again. I know that gets a lot of people excited, and just another reason to come out and play the Hawthorne tournaments.
Yeah, definitely worth jumping into. Again, if you have any questions or want to get any information, visit the website hawthorneracecourse.com. All right, let's look at the racing action today. As Emily mentioned, we kick things off on the turf going this. About 7.5 furlongs on the firm turf course, $20,000 claimers in here. 50-cent pick 5 wagering, put Javier Tavares on the 4, embarrassing. Scratch the 6, Good Mongolia. Hugo Rodriguez had 2 in here, but why run 2 when 1 will do? In his mind, embarrassing, maybe in with a shot. But I'll tell you, you can look a lot of different ways in this spot. Embarrassing could be a factor. That horse is 23 to 1. I mean, I'm really surprised at that.
It's an upgrade.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure everybody's betting Beyond Proper at 7 to 5, but she's wonderful. Could be a factor as well too. So there are a few different ways you can go.
Yeah, I mean, right now we're seeing Beyond Proper as the current favorite. You have it listed as the morning line favorite. It makes a lot of sense. The only question is just taking the drop off the layoff. And, you know, my kind of strategy in here is I thought Beyond Proper maybe had some questions on that front. They're certainly capable. And I thought Miz and Ash was going to get a lot of attention. Currently sitting at 7 to 2, the third choice as it's switching right as I'm speaking. But heavily backed in the exacta, so maybe we'll see some movement by the time we go through. So I gave Embarrassing a look. She's wonderful. I think is an upgrade. She's going to stretch out in the second start of the form cycle. Embarrassing, it's a slight rise in class. Maybe that's why we're seeing the number on the board, but she's run competitive races. And then my other clever idea in here was number 3, Way Too Smart. She has had just those limited starts on the turf, and some of them were in some tougher spots, and I think this is probably the right spot, and that's when I gave a look to. So, like I said, I like when it starts like this because it's a competitive race. When you have some knocks on the favorites, can give you a little bit of an edge in that pick 5.
You have to dig deep to find Way Too Smart's turf races, and when you do, you find some very good ones. One of them is the State Bred Stakes score for Way Too Smart, and the horse took a lot of action that day when the horse won that race on the Hawthorne turf course. Now in for 20. She's an 8-year-old, but you never know. Miz and Ash, Tony Grandis comes in from Horseshoe, Indianapolis with a couple of horses today. He's back in with one on Sunday as well. When they come in well intended. That horse ran very well in that last out. And I'm happy to get 7 to 2. I would happily take 7 to 2 on Miz and Ash in today's opener. Second race on the card, $5,000 claimers go a mile and 70 yards, field of 5 in here. Hugo does have 2 in here. They both stay in with Midnight Blue Note and Where'd the Day Go. I went to Midnight Blue Note in this spot, but you're going to give a little bit of a look to Cramden, a horse that finally showed some signs of life in that last out.
And that's really the sign, is I just think the horse was kind of fell out of their form cycle, could be cycling back in their form cycle, and this would be the time and place. Number 5, Where'd the Day Go, maybe has a pace advantage in this race, just kind of the way that it shakes out. But yeah, that was where I upgraded Cramden. When it's a 5-horse field, sometimes it's, you know, if you can find an alternative, got to take a little bit of stand. There's not a lot of value trying to spread in some of those races sometimes. So I did want to like kind of highlight Cramden as a horse that could be moving forward in their form cycle.
Yeah, definitely could be. And I don't know what the pace scenario is going to be. I think you're right. Where'd the Day Go is a horse that should be on the front end. You do see Midnight Blue Note winning on the lead 2 back, but that race was deceptive. They walked around on the front end. They were 50 to the half, 115 for 3/4. And the horse just inherited the lead and took him the whole way around, going to probably rate off the pace. Not very gentle, a horse that's run decent races in those last couple too. So again, another spot where you could, if you want to, try to defeat the favorite. So we'll see what happens in race number 2. Third race on the card, back to about 7.5 furlongs on the firm turf. Illinois bred allowance runners in this spot. Starts to pick 6 wager, field of 7 to line up. We welcome Erica Murray to the Jocks Room. She's going to be aboard the 4. That's Just a Blaze. That's a horse that could be very tough, but right next to that one, coming up aces, a horse that gets back to the turf course as well, Emily.
Yeah, and that was kind of the key for me. I mean, his races this year, or this season, have been good, but I think they've been waiting to get him on the turf. So not only is he getting back to the turf, but getting back to the state bred level. Those turf numbers from last year, even a competitive race here, fits on par. And I just think it's the right group. Sometimes, you know, the way this condition comes up, as an allowance race, pretty solid purse. It's right in line with the races that he's been running in. And you know, you mentioned Just Blaze. Kind of seems like an obvious type in here, but I thought that buried form would find a little bit more value in coming up aces.
Yeah, the one thing about Just Blaze that I did look to was just the fact that Gary Scherer decided to send the horse back here. This was a horse that was here for a start, went up to Minnesota, and ran a good race on the Canterbury turf course. Then you come back here because you're the Illinois bred racehorse and you find a spot that's not super tough for the state bred allowance level. So I like the fact that he said, okay, we're going to put this horse on the van, come back here, and send the rider who rode the horse very well in that last out. Price is going to be the question mark here. Vitali, the 3, is a horse that should take some action as well off that last start, but you see a lot of movement in this field. Every single horse in the race is coming out of a race other than a state bred allowance into this spot. So kind of interesting how things come together. You see this a lot at the end of the season, but we're seeing it a little bit early, but a good race there on the turf for race number 3. 4th race on the card, $25,000 claimers, non-winners of 3 races lifetime. They go 3/4 of a mile, field of 6 lines up. Alexis Centeno is on the 3, Palace Magic. By the way, congrats to trainer Chris Banks that just had the birth of a child a couple of days ago. But in this spot, again, you can go a few different ways, and I know you started out a little bit with a look at Miss Melody in here, right?
Yeah, and it really came down to just sort of the way the race shape was going to play out. I thought there'd be a lot of pace in here. It's got the sun contention, a solid speed rate with number 1, I Don't Know Margot, number 2, Free Love, number 6, Kitty McLean, horses that want to be on or near the lead. So it could set up a horse, a trip for Miss Melody, a horse that can be forwardly placed if they want to, doesn't necessarily need the lead, and that speed rate being what it is, and those pace setters being circles, kind of looking for that horse that was going to get first run. And Miss Melody, if you go back, she's run some of the faster races, and those races would make her very competitive. The connections have been sending out some decently live runners. So yeah, I just thought it was kind of a good spot for her in here.
Trainer Pat Clay's had a very good meet too. If you look, 23% win percentage, hitting the board almost a 75% rate. Everything's well placed, everything's well intended. Like you mentioned, it's just going to kind of come down to pace scenario in this spot. That's the reason I went to the 4, Beg, Borrow, and Steal. Just, I think the horse is going to settle back off what could be a quick and contested pace up front, and then should come running at him late. Good state bred allowance score, 2 back. Try that open allowance in that last out, just a little bit too tough. Wilma Mankiller ran a really good race in there too. Kitty McLean, again, it's another Granites runner coming in from Indiana for this race, so intention is the key here as well. But Beg, Borrow, and Steal, the one I went to in race 4, but you could look a few different ways. I don't think you'll have a very heavy favorite out of any of those in that spot.
Great.
5th race on the card, 5.5 furlongs on the firm turf course, $25,000 maiden claimers in here. Field of 9 to line up. Be My Bestie, the favorite in this spot, probably a deserving favorite off that last out. I did pick the horse on top, but I like the horse that you put in the mix as well, because I thought it had a shot too. That's the 2, Secret Operation. I think this is a horse that could sneak off at a little bit of a price as well.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you mentioned that, because the kind of the key with it is sneaking off at a little bit of a price, because you know Be My Bestie is going to take a lot of money. Even Go On Girl, who's a former Ravelli runner, likely to get a lot of attention. And Secret Operation, she encountered trouble and trip in that most recent start on the turf, needed the class relief, so they're kind of finding the right spot for her at this time. Got the class drop on the turf, has the foundation there, coming off that troubled trip, and then should offer value because those other 2 horses in the field, and just kind of think the horse catches the right spot.
And you look up and down this field, there's actually quite a bit of pace in here. I mean, 5 or 6 have the potential to go. Secret Operation, you know, it's just probably going to sit back a little bit early on and run at him late. Close up some ground at 5/8 in that last out. You get the added 16 today, so it's not going to hurt. The inside draw shouldn't hurt either with the ground-saving trip around the turn. I think that's a horse that could step up and be right there in the end. I did go to Be My Bestie on top, just with the move from the 10-hole, few slots in here, and again, rated just off the pace in that last out. But don't be surprised if Secret Operation runs well on the spot by any means. Maybe on the outside too, Emily, the 9 Freedom Attack could be a little bit of one worth a look. First time on the turf course, and again, possibly the running style that suits.
Yeah, and I actually like the move, getting this horse on the turf. Just going back to the races from last season, thought it was a horse that would move up on the turf, so finally getting the chance to run on the grass, and that was kind of the key, moving that one in the mix. And they're also coming out of the special weight races on the drop, so again, another one kind of like Secret Operation, just kind of finding both those factors at the right time.
And value probably potential for both of those horses as well. 6th race on the card starts the last of our pick 3 wagers. We go 3/4 of a mile. Starter allowance company. Field of 7 lines up in here. The one they have to try to beat is 2 Worlds. The question is whether or not they can do so, but this is a horse that ran a really game race at Horseshoe Indianapolis in their last out, now comes back to Hawthorne today.
Yeah, looking at the race shape, looking at this horse, definitely makes sense. Has the early speed, probably the horse that's going to be tough to, as you said, tough to catch on the front end, tough to run down, in good form. But there could be some others that put some pressure on them early on, and that's why I gave Andrew the Giant a bit of a look. It's going to have to come from off the pace. So my handicapping was like 1 on the front end, 1 on the back end, and hopefully somewhere it works out. But Andrew the Giant, just from his last race in Allowance Company, and in that start, just needed the changes. It's just timing-wise, in terms of form cycle, it's a repetitive pattern that's moved this horse forward in the past. Another one that's just going to be under the radar because that form is so buried, and it's tough to see just looking at the running lines alone, but actually watching the trips and watching the intent, I think it's the right spot.
Yeah, that start back on New Year's Eve, 3 starts back, I think was a deceptively good race as well, because kind of settled back early on, closed up ground light. All the focus was on Big Sport at that time, and that was the horse that dominated the level there. And Try Again ran really well in there. I did go to Try Again in the spot trainer. Joel Zawitz, we've talked about the meet he's had. It's been a very solid meet. A good win in that last out. And that was a race where the race prior ended up finishing 7th in a really tough field at odds of 64-1 and just found it so much easier in that last. Rated close to the pace, but doesn't need the lead to win. And Try Again, I think, is a horse that just stalks and pounces in the lane. Hopefully we get the 7-2 price. I think we do with 2 worlds in here, and that'll be the key for race number 6. 7th race on the card goes a mile and a 16th on the firm turf course. Allowance runners in this spot. Take out the 2 main track onlys, the 8 Make Me Believe and the 9 Dialed In. So it leaves you with the field of a 7 to line up. When we both end up on a price, that's a good thing. So Leah Rowe is a horse that I know you have in the mix. I have in the mix. I thought the horse ran a very good race in that last out, and we'll see what we get price-wise today.
Yeah, I'm pretty much too deep in this leg. Leah Rowe being one of those, ran a very good race last out, had to move through traffic, had some trouble, was gaining late. This field's a little bit softer, has the conditioning under their belt. I don't know what the price will be, but seems like a race that could be a little bit competitive. Just very, very logical, very honest type runner. And then I gave a look to I.O. Uncle Mo. This is a debut winner when we back on May 14th that we kind of saw in the paddock, and we're like, wow, this horse looks good, looks like a router, ran pretty professional on debut, got a good ride to win first out, and I just think it's a type of horse just from those visuals could be able to take a step forward. Doesn't even need to take that much of a step forward in order to compete in this field, and just has upside. So those are kind of the 2 that I'm keying on in this race.
I.O. Uncle Mo was intended for the turf in that spot. That was one of the rare days we were off the turf this meet, and the horse did stay in it and ran very impressively. And I think you'll get a little bit of a price too on the horse just because they don't know what to expect on the turf. Wanda Strong ran a huge race against State Bred Allowance Company in that last out, rallying late. But I'm with you, Leah Rowe, I like that last effort. Just kind of settled back there, waited in the lane, tried to find that room, finally found it late, and then was full of run. And I think this is a horse that definitely suits here. I don't mind the inside draw. I think you do the same exact thing. Save ground the whole way. Hope you get that room again. The added 16th's not going to hurt this horse by any means. This is the best distance for the racehorse as well. So Leah Rowe, the horse I'm going to look to in race number 7. In the finale, Jackpot High Fives growing that carryover, $120,713. Scratch the 2, Driven One. That was a horse that I thought could actually be a major player in this spot. The big question, Emily, in here is, can you beat Moment? Moment's kind of been dominant throughout the course of the year. 7 of 8 first or second. Probably going to be a very short price favorite.
Well, I think Jim Watkins will have something to say about that, because he's got Gun Rush in here, and Gun Rush is kind of the same thing. Has been on an absolute tear. I thought he was going to regress 2 back, ran a big race. Came right back and won again, and I think this really makes a competitive horse race, because you have a horse like Moment who wants to be on or near the lead and is in good form. You have Gun Rush, a horse that's also in good form that wants to be on or near the lead, and I think those 2 are going to go at it. Maybe we'll see a battle and win the war type scenario, or I'm kind of taking the approach that maybe those 2 will take it to each other with with Driven One out. Kind of upgrades Pinedale in here. Just one of those horses that's going to look to pick up any of those pace setters that are tiring late, and even Jeff the Lion returning to a top effort. But yeah, I think it's an interesting race in the finale. I mean, both Moment, Gun Rush, those horses coming off straight wins. Gonna be interesting.
Moment is always so solid. Doesn't need the lead to win, but seems to run its best races on the front end. Gun Rush has been very good of late. Bourbon Delight could be the one that kind of throws everybody for a loop if that horse goes out there and tries to just push things along a little bit with Comfort Me Now. I did go to Pinedale in this spot. I don't know if Pinedale's good enough to win. Pinedale was a little bit disappointing to me in that last out, but kind of was hurt by the lack of pace in there. This horse settled back. They went to the half in 49, started to pick it up a little bit, but the horse just had too much work left to do in the lane and just wasn't able to get up in time. So I'm going to give the horse another look in here.
Yeah, and you mentioned the trip and the pace in there, but a lot of that just had to do with the rider, and they're making a rider change today, and I think part of that has to do with that tactic last out, because that compromised the horse so much, and the rider change making a difference today. Again, it goes back to intent, so I think that's positive.
So we'll see how things unfold there in the last. Again, a $120,713 in that carryover for the Jackpot High Five. So a whole lot to look forward to on today's card. But again, 4 races on the turf, sunny skies, fast main track, firm turf course today. And we kick things off in the opener. Going to the turf, we go about 7.5 furlongs on the turf for race number 1. Field walking over to the paddock, scratch the 6, that's Good Mongolia. Along with Win Play Show, Exacta Try, Super, Double Pick 3, Pick 5 wagering, just a 15% takeout on the Pick 5. And Emily, these are $20,000 claimers in the opener. And right there you see the 7, Beyond Proper, walking over. I'm a little surprised to see that this horse is not a heavier favorite, currently sitting at 5-2.
Yeah, the board's been kind of saying that the whole time, right? Where they weren't willing to fully go in on the 7 yet, and then looking at some of the other pools, still a little bit lukewarm. But I think there are the questions just in terms of the layoff and coming off the layoff in general, but also coming back today, dropping in for a tag for the first time in their career. It could be a little bit concerning, and especially off the most recent running line going back to December 2nd, where there were weather conditions, the horse broke slow, had kickback, a wide trip, so there were certainly excuses along the way. Biggest question for me was taking a short price off the layoff and with that class drop, especially with alternatives in the field.
I'm going to be curious to see if anybody jumps in for Beyond Proper for the 20,000 in here or not. But this is a horse that has worked very well towards the return, but you're right, that last start out of the fall meet was a very flat effort, and that was something where you'd have to figure, okay, if that was the first time not running on the turf, understandable. Well, the horse ran on the main track on a good surface in that start 2-back and ran a really good race. So Beyond Proper, a horse that I think you can try to beat in the spot as well. You're looking at 2-1, but there are some other options in here. So I'm going to start out with the 5. That's Mizzen Ash. Mizzen Ash at 3-1 on the board right now. You get a look at that gray mare right there from the barn of trainer Tony Granitz. Tony sent a couple over on the meet. Does have a runner-up effort with 1, but he's got 2 in here today. Mizzen Ash in that last out of Horseshoe Indianapolis faced 12-5 company. I thought that was a pretty impressive effort. Settled in that middle of the pack there early on. Made a little bit earlier move than I think they might have even expected in there. Grabbed the lead in the lane and then extended on to that victory. But this is a horse that gets right back at the same distance, 7.5 furlongs. Probably looking for a very similar trip. I guess the only question is if there's going to be enough pace to chase, but taking a little bit of action at 3-1.
Yeah, and that was the other horse you just mentioned, kind of saw some of the money in the double, so we'll see where she shakes out. But coming off the win, did, as you mentioned, move a little bit early, but it was the right move at the right time in order to get the horse the win, saved ground, and was also coming back in that second start of the form cycle from a better than looked effort, that 4th place finish back on May 29th. So that kind of created some slight concern for me, is just if the horse was kind of peaked for that most recent start, getting the win, and now is going to come back here in 15 days. We know the horse is capable, but again, it just comes down to timing. And Mizzen Ash, a runner that, again, we say certainly capable, but has to get a trip from off the pace. And I thought, you know, between the two, just kind of looking at if I was creating some knocks in those favorites, opening up to some of the others, but could certainly see Mizzen Ash or Beyond Proper in the winner's circle.
Yeah, those two are your top 2 choices. After that, things open up a little bit. Let's look to the 4, Embarrassing. When we talked on the pre-race show, Embarrassing was at 23-1. Now Embarrassing is at 5-1. Hugo Rodriguez had 2 in here, scratched the 6, Good Mongolia. This is the one that stays and picks up Javier Tavares, and Embarrassing, I think the 5-1, a little bit more like it after the scratch in this spot.
Yeah, it makes sense. That was actually, in my opinion, a better than looked effort back on June 4th, coming off the layoff. The inside paths were favorable. The horse broke slow, had to make a move through traffic. So a sneaky good effort, all things considered. The class change was sort of the most notable because they ran in that 10,000 last out. They're going to step up to 20, but just kind of going back through the horse's form. Has races under similar conditions that would make them competitive, but is another runner like Mizzen Ash that probably is going to have to come from off the pace, but there is some price compensation, not quite the 23-1 we had 15 minutes ago, but still pretty square 6.
Yeah, and it's really hard to figure out how that turf course is going to play because we've had such a little bit of rain here. At the same time, I talked to Tim Becker, the gentleman who takes care of our turf course. He said they had the sprinklers on for 10 hours on Monday, so they had to put a lot of water onto the surface just to kind of keep it green and keep it growing and keep it ready to roll. So I expect it to play very evenly. It is a tailwind in the stretch, make note of that, so that usually benefits horses coming from a little bit out of it. Maybe it helps the 4 Embarrassing in this spot as well. Now the 3 horse in here is Way Too Smart. Way Too Smart currently at 9-1 right now, but Emily, like we talked about before, this horse, you see a whole lot of recent dirt races, but if you dig back deeper, you find some turf races that have been pretty solid, and the horse makes a good impression in the paddock right now.
Yeah, it's kind of like another one that just from a physical standpoint looks like a turf horse, has those back turf races. There's only a few, only 4 in her career, but current form coming in, had a bit of an excuse back in the Third Chance Stakes, been able to get some conditioning in those sprint races, maybe if anything the distance more than the surface, but I just thought was going to be one that was a little bit too sneaky to leave out of the mix.
Yeah, it's an 8-year-old mare, an Illinois bred that is bred for the grass, has handled the grass well, and just took a little bit of a hit there down to 5-1. So really, this is a board that has been very fluid. Now, the one is She's Wonderful. She's Wonderful sits at 5-1. This one from the barn of trainer Patty Miller. Victor Santiago in the saddle. Tried the allowance test in that last out. That was only going 5/8 of a mile. It's also the first start of the year. So now you stretch out, you find things a little bit easier. Horse wouldn't surprise me by any means. Maybe shows a little bit of speed in this spot too.
Yeah, certainly could. I think the last race was probably just a prep, all things considered, coming off the 159-day layoff, coming back in the sprint, now wheels back here in 13 days. And just from the visuals in that allowance race, again, just 13 days ago, looks like one that needed more ground, so now has the conditioning under their belt. It's back at the claiming level where they've been competitive in the past, so probably in the right spot to compete in here.
Yeah, and she did show a little bit of late run in that spot. Like you mentioned, you get a little bit more distance today. You get 2 turns, definitely benefits her chances. Lastly, the 2 is Emichaz. This one at 9-2 on the board comes from the barn of trainer John Hare and Alexis Centeno in the saddle. The horse was claimed just 2 starts back. There's John standing in the stall there. Faced starter company in that last out. I'll be curious to see how the horse handles the turf.
Yeah, I guess that is kind of the big question, right? Because they haven't been on the turf at all. But you know, one of those horses that was actually the second choice for a long time. So that 9-2 number is actually a number that's on the drift. When we're talking about numbers, the numbers certainly fit. The running style fits for this race shape. So I'm not against this one at all. And you're getting a little bit of price compensation just because of that turf unknown. But Heron's sending out some live runners as of late. Sent out a very live first time starting, good looking 2-year-old yesterday at Horseshoe Indianapolis. So maybe that's some intent that they're actually, you know, he's here and in person with this horse.
I would think so. He had a very good meet at Oaklawn Park throughout the course of spring because that's a tough meet. He's had a very good meet here at Hawthorne. You look, 11 of his first 18 finding the board, but we'll see how this one does kind of handle things on the turf. 9-2 right now, so it's taking a little bit of action. But as we're 9 minutes to post for the opener, they're going to get ready to head out. We offer win, play, show, exacta, trifecta, superfecta, double pick 3 and pick 5 wagering. Good luck with your selections. Horses heading out momentarily here for race number 1.
Racing fans, those of you just arriving, we're 8 minutes away from the first race. Turf firm for the opener. Rail set at 10 feet out. First race starts. The rolling daily doubles, rolling pick 3s, the 50-some pick 5, and the first race 4 embarrassing make the jockey Javier Tavares. The weight's okay. Javier Tavares rides 4 embarrassing. Scratch 6 Good Mongolia. Scratch 6 Good Mongolia. Second race starts at 50-cent early, pick 4, no changes. Third race starts at pick 6, turf firm. There are no changes in the third. Fourth race, 3 Palace Magic, make the jockey Alexis Centeno. The weight's okay. Alexis Centeno rides 3 Palace Magic in race 4. Fifth race starts at late pick 4, turf firm, no changes in race 5. We're 8 minutes away from the first. In all cases, make your selections early. Turf firm, track fast at Hawthorne. Coming on the track for the Wednesday opener, they'll go about 7 1/2 furlongs on a turf course listed as firm with the rails set at 10 feet out. Scratch 6, Good Mongolia. That leaves a field of 6. Jockey change 4, Embarrassing. Make the jockey Javier Tavares. There are no overweights as of now on today's program. Post time in 6 minutes for race 1. Win, play, show, exacta, trifecta, superfecta. Starts the rolling daily doubles, rolling pick 3s, and the 50-cent pick 5. And here they are. Number 1, She's Wonderful, Victor Santiago riding. Number 2 is Emitiaz, Alexis Centeno aboard. 3, Way Too Smart, will be handled by Alexander Bendezu. 4 is Embarrassing. Note the rider change here. Javier Tavares riding number 4. 5, Mizanash, Julio Felix the rider. 6 is Scratch 7, Beyond Proper, Chris Amy. We'll bring her to the gate and I'll be there in about 6 minutes. Kick off the Wednesday program. Turf Firm for the opener. Racing fans, little time remains for you to wager on today's first race, which features rolling daily doubles, rolling pick threes, and the 50-cent pick five. We have a fast track today. The first race is on the turf. Turf firm, rail set at 10 feet out. Warm temperatures are in the Chicagoland area in the 80s. Still hazy skies. Thank you, Canada. We have a slight tailwind in the home stretch. We do thank you for joining us, wherever you may be across the betting network. Here at Hawthorne, the comfort of your own home, inner track or off track facilities, we do thank you for joining us on this summer solstice. We are close to starting time. We do have one carryover pool today, and that's the 8th race. The jackpot high five carryover is $120,712. $120,712, and the jackpot high five carryover pool on race 8. Close to starting time for race 1 at Hawthorne. Moving towards the gate, less than a minute. Now they're at the starting gate for today's first race here at Hawthorne, first of 8 on the Wednesday program. Turf firm, rail set at 10 feet out today. The track will be fast all day long. Horses are entering the starting gate for race 1 at Hawthorne. Last 2 to go in, Way Too Smart and Beyond Proper. Waiting for Beyond Proper. She's in, they're on the gate. They're off. She's Wonderful going for the lead. Way Too Smart came away well from the outside. Beyond Proper moving up. METIAS came away in 4th. Mizanash 5th, and the early trailer Embarrassing as they make their way around the first turn over a firm turf course at Hawthorne. She's Wonderful's opened up 5 lengths as they turn onto the backstretch, less than 6 furlongs to go. She's Wonderful by 5. Way Too Smart racing second, Beyond Proper third, 7 lengths behind the leader. 2.5 lengths back to METIAS, followed by Mizanash and Embarrassing. Midway on the backstretch, that opening quarter, 24.10. Little more than a half mile to go. She's Wonderful by 4.5 lengths. The outside, Way Too Smart towards the inside. Beyond Proper saves ground and will soon need racing room. And then to the outside, Emitiaz. Down along the rail, Mizanash just got shuffled back. And about to go by her is Embarrassing as they move around the far turn. She's Wonderful holds firm. Way Too Smart moves up on the outside, a closer second. Beyond Proper still needs racing room third. Around the turn, She's Wonderful comes off the turn with the lead. Now Beyond Proper finds racing room and splitting horses and gaining ground. Way Too Smart is 3 deep. Followed up by Embarrassing. Mizanash along the rail. They're in deep stretch. She's Wonderful with Beyond Proper. It's down to these two. Beyond Proper now takes the lead in deep stretch. And Beyond Proper will win the Wednesday opener. She's Wonderful second. Way Too Smart third. Mizanash along the rail was fourth. Today's first race, 7 Beyond Proper finished first. 1 She's Wonderful second. 3 Way Too Smart was third. 5 Mizanash fourth. 7135 is posted. It's unofficial. 130.80 the running time. Firm turf.